Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Newsbrowse News broadcast. UPI reports that 2 people were killed in a mass shooting on Monday at Leinbach Park in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Police were initially called to the park for a fight involving 2 children, but the situation escalated into an exchange of gunfire among multiple individuals. Several people, including juveniles, have been identified and located by law enforcement. The park and nearby roads were closed as officers processed the scene. Police have stated that this is an isolated incident and is under active investigation. Local schools near the park maintained normal operations, though residents were advised to avoid the area to ensure the safety of emergency responders. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, in a message published on X during an official visit to Germany, warned of the deteriorating international order and the paralysis of the United Nations. According to UPI, he called for urgent reform of the UN Security Council and strengthened multilateralism to address global conflicts and rising unilateralism. Lula highlighted concerns over potential conflicts in Iran and Lebanon, the ongoing threat to the Palestinian state, and the distant prospect of peace in Ukraine. He criticized the prevalence of force over law as the greatest threat to international peace and security. The Brazilian leader emphasized that revitalized multilateralism, diplomacy, and cooperation are the only ways to achieve sustainable development and peace, asserting that humanity must recover the idea that peace is morally necessary and politically possible. His remarks align with recent criticisms of U.S. President Donald Trump's foreign policy rhetoric and calls for global leaders to prioritize dialogue over threats. While in Germany, Lula also promoted the provisional entry into force of the free trade agreement between the European Union and Mercosur, presenting it as an alternative to unilateral trade measures. A report released by the European Union and the United Nations indicates that Gaza will need over $71 billion for its recovery and reconstruction over the next decade. The conflict has had a catastrophic impact on human development in the territory. The assessment highlights that $26.3 billion is required in the first 18 months to restore essential services, rebuild infrastructure, and support economic recovery. The report estimates physical infrastructure damages at $35.2 billion, with economic and social losses reaching $22.7 billion. Key sectors such as housing, health, education, commerce, and agriculture have been severely affected. The conflict has reportedly set back human development in Gaza by 77 years, displacing 1.9 million people and destroying or damaging over 50% of hospitals and nearly all schools. Both the UN and the EU have called for a Palestinian-led reconstruction, emphasizing approaches that support the transition of governance to the Palestinian Authority. This statement serves as a critique of earlier suggestions by U.S. President Donald Trump regarding Gaza's future development. Reporting by Al Jazeera. A gunman has killed a Canadian woman and injured 6 other people at Mexico's Teotihuacan pyramids before dying by suicide, according to authorities. The incident occurred on Monday at the popular archaeological site located outside Mexico City. Mexico's security cabinet reported that the injured individuals are receiving medical attention. Canada's foreign ministry has not yet commented. President Claudia Sheinbaum expressed sorrow over the events and stated that the government is in contact with the Canadian embassy. Investigations into the shooting are underway, with personnel from the Secretariat of the Interior and Culture heading to the site to provide assistance. The pre-Hispanic city of Teotihuacan is a significant cultural center in Mesoamerica. Al Jazeera reported on the developing story. Cuba's government confirmed Monday that it recently met with U.S. officials on the island, with a top priority for its delegation being the lifting of the U.S. energy blockade. Senior U.S. State Department officials, speaking anonymously, had previously disclosed that American diplomats flew to Cuba in early April for the first time since 2016 for diplomatic negotiations overseen by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The U.S. delegation stressed that Cuba's economy is in free fall and urged the island's ruling elites to implement key U.S.-backed reforms before conditions worsen irreversibly. The meetings were described as respectful and professional by Alejandro Garcia del Toro, Cuba's Deputy Director General in charge of U.S. affairs, who denied reports of U.S. threats or deadlines. Washington's conditions for lifting sanctions include ending political repression, releasing political prisoners, and liberalizing the struggling economy. Former U.S. President Donald Trump had previously threatened tariffs on countries supplying oil to Cuba and even military intervention. This report comes from NBC 6 South Florida. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.